Hello and welcome into another edition of the Bleav in Mavs podcast. And holy shit, that is the only way I think I can start this because Alex, my co-host as always, and me, Wyatt, have had our minds blown. At least I have, that Kyrie Irving is now a Dallas Maverick. And let's just jump right into it. Alex, where were you when you found out that Kyrie Irving got traded, and how excited were you on a scale of 1 to 10 to see Kyrie Irving is now a Dallas Maverick?
I was walking to Pete's Coffee in Los Angeles, California, grabbing my mocha, my dark chocolate mocha for the day, my treat coffee on a Sunday, with a
Hell
nice
yeah.
little breakfast sandwich. And I felt the whole gamut of emotions as soon as I heard that we had gotten Kyrie. My first, actually, you texted me was it the Woj bomb or was it
It was
Shams?
the Shams. Shams had this one.
Nice. Yeah, Shams feeling good after his kind of
The
tete-a-tete that he had
Riz.
with his Riz that he was firing off at Kay Adams. And he breaks this news, and you text me, and at first I was like, oh, is this just a fake account, right? Is this one of the many fake Shams, fake Woj accounts that's tweeting this? And then I investigated further, and as soon as you texted me, then my inbox started flooding, multiple texts from a lot of my fellow Mavs fans and buddies from the Dallas area, or just generally people that know that I love the Mavs and know that I love Luka Doncic. I'm not surprised when Kyrie kind of played his hand and we knew that he was going to get dealt. I felt like the most viable destinations were, of course, the Lakers, who were mentioned heavily in talks, and then the Mavericks. I think from just a desperation play, like our Nico and Mark, who knows what how much they're actually listening to Mavs Twitter, but there's been a lot of blowback on just the roster construction around Luka Doncic and what this team needs to do in order to contend year in, year out, while we have this 23-year-old superstar, world-class player. A lot of people think he is the best player in the world. Wyatt, you think that. So I was stunned, surprised. Of course, my mind went to, what did we give up? The 2029 first round pick, 2027 second, 2029 second. Spencer Dinwiddie, who is returning back to the Brooklyn Nets, and Dorian Finney-Smith, who certainly is our best wing defender, a starter, one of Luka's favorite players on this Mavericks team, a guy that really came up through the Mavs organization. I would say he's in my top 10 favorite Mavericks of all time. I love the way he plays. He's so gritty. He crashes the offensive glass. He protected Luka. He didn't take shit from nobody. Like, this is a guy that it's hard not to like. He really was embraced by the Dallas community. I think as far as, just what I saw over the last 5 hours from Mavs fans on social media, like, the biggest emphatic dreariness that has been attached to this trade is that we lost Doe.
Yep.
Spencer, who we got midway through the season last year in that KP trade, came on hot, in the playoffs and had some really great moments. The dunk on Gobert. I feel like he's been jamming things left and right this season. He's shooting a career high from 3-point. He has taken the reins when Luka has been out in the 7 games. He's lost every single one of those games, but he was vying for that number 2 spot on this Mavericks team. And we had multiple conversations. Is it Wood? Is it Spencer? Depending on the day, could it be Timmy? And it really hasn't been over the last couple of months. It's Kyrie Irving now. There is no question. We now have 2 all-star starters on this team. And the off-the-court stuff is certainly something that we could do an entire podcast about. But I want to focus, at least just me and you, on the on-the-court stuff. And before we get into that, I want to hear your reactions and how you feel right now in this moment.
I feel as clouded as I did when I got the notification from Shams, because I have his notifications on. I've had him on since before Twitter got, I won't say decimated, but I mean, it's not as it once was. It's especially when I saw Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks, I lost my mind. I was like, holy shit. We just got the best player as a second superstar on the Mavs, maybe history since at least Steve Nash, right? That like and Luka finally has help. It's Kyrie, yes, off the court, but on the court, this guy is, I mean, obviously an all NBA talent, right? I was blown away. I was so excited. And then I saw that it was for Spencer Dinwiddie, which I kind of expected. If we were going to make the trade for Kyrie, Spencer was going to be part of the deal, I think, no matter what.
Yeah.
But when I saw Doe's name and, 2029 first round pick, who cares? And
It's
for
2023
this
right now.
level,
6 years in 6 years out from right now. So
Yep.
we got a while.
Yep. We have a long time and 2 second round picks. Obviously, who cares, right? For this level of talent, that's an undersell. I get it. He's the only technically rental at this point. I don't know how you feel about the extension. We can get to that later. But when it came to Dorian Finney-Smith, it made me much more wary of this trade. And, you highlighted it perfectly. Doe means so much to this Mavericks team, both to the guys on the team and to the fans like you and me. Everybody loves Doe. Luka loves Doe. The fan base loves Doe. Doe does everything that you need him to, plus a little bit more, right? He is the glue guy, or he was the glue guy. He was the guy calling out names on the court where people needed to be, who he's got, especially when I mentioned this on my solo. Whenever the rotation was getting a little wacky, it was always Doe and Luka on the baseline coordinating where guys needed to be, right? Which is, it's mainly Doe, but Luka's just as much in that conversation as Doe
no,
is.
he was essentially our defensive anchor.
Mm-hmm. He was, and he was, like I said, the glue guy. He was that catch and shoot three, and I think most importantly, he was the guy who showed so much heart and hustle, whether it was on the court or in the gym, because this guy got better every single year. Like, it's just, you can't dispute it. Every single year he's raised his 3-point percentage from the year before. Added some dribble moves to his game. Added a step back three that we saw earlier this year. Like, what the hell? This guy couldn't dribble or shoot coming out of Florida and got undrafted because of it. But defense was there. Energy was there. And so that made me a little bit more wary of this trade. But when my mind goes back to, oh, we have a big three of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, and Christian Wood. That can win a championship if everything goes right. It can win a championship, and I think it needs to be followed by another move. Whether, I think we discussed it earlier, for like a wing, a defender, maybe a big, and definitely a big. I'm just generally excited for it.
I think we still have some, especially now that we've dealt Dorian, we have some things to address. Wing defense. Right now, Reggie Bullock, Josh Green are our two best wing defenders, but Josh is 6'5". He doesn't have the same size as Dorian. Of course, he's uber athletic, so I think defensive rebounding, offensive rebounding, he can still apply pressure there. And I expect that this move had a lot to do with, or at least there was some comfort in knowing how well Josh Green has played this season.
Mm-hmm.
How big of a leap he has taken now as a 22-year-old, how far the 3-point shot has come for him, right? Shooting over 40% from three. His minutes will go up. As of right now, like you said, we have Christian Wood. As of right now, we have Tim Hardaway Jr. still on the team. Christian Wood and Kyrie Irving, both expiring contracts.
Yep.
So there's decisions that will have to be made. Extending Christian Wood, who we know, over the last month, his camp is saying that he wants a 4-year deal. Same thing with Kyrie Irving, right? Kyrie Irving wanted to be traded with the intention of being signed either with that team or somewhere else on a 4-year, close to $200 million deal.
Yeah.
So those are decisions that will have to be made. And I think a lot of that will come down to what happens this season with the Mavericks. Prior to this trade, our odds to win a championship, and this is before the Golden State loss that we had without Luka, without Christian Wood. We are, what are we now, 28-27? One game above 500?
Let me double check.
Right? Check me on that. But the odds for the Dallas Mavericks to win a world championship, win the NBA Finals on
28 and
BetOnline.
26.
28 and 26. So 2 games above 500. The odds on betonline.ag. Love betonline.ag. Use promo code Bleav, BLEAV. The odds were 33-1. Now they are 10-1.
That's
The
insane.
Dallas Mavericks have a 10-1 odds to win the NBA championship after trading for Kyrie Irving.
So much money must have come in.
Yeah.
Much money must have come in.
Do I think that those odds are a little high for us? Yes, I do. I think we have a lot left to prove, especially on the defensive side of things. And I think that's where most people's criticisms that I've seen have been, okay, but this defense is going to be terrible because now you have Luka and Kyrie in your closing five, and they're going to have to defend guys.
Yep.
Again, like I'm still worried about our wing defense and our bigs. I'm way more worried about that than I am about Luka, than I am about Kyrie. Kyrie is a better defender this year than Spencer Dinwiddie. I have said multiple times that I think Spencer Dinwiddie is the worst closeout defender in the NBA. I think a lot of that has to do with how much attention and focus he was positioned and implementing on the defensive side. And I know a lot of that attention and focus was on the offensive side in order to help Luka. But you've basically slotted in a guy who is better at stealing the ball than Spencer Dinwiddie. And on offense, the real kicker to this trade is what happens now when Luka Doncic, who is the most doubled NBA player, what happens when he passes the ball to Kyrie Irving on the wing, when now we're in a 4-on-3 situation with one of the most skilled basketball players we've ever seen in our lifetime, and let him go. Let him cook. Let him work his magic. He, of course, is an excellent ISO basketball player, but he's been playing with Kevin Durant. He's not a bad catch and shoot guy. So if Luka demands that attention and no one's, closing out on him hard, they're sagging off. He's a great three-point shooter. He's a career 39% three-point shooter. He can create for other guys too. And I look at our five that's going to be on the court at the end of games. And when you have Luka, you have Kyrie, let's say we hold on to Christian Wood and we don't deal him before this Thursday. And then you've got Josh Green in there and Maxi Kleber. Once he becomes healthy, he can pick and pop. We know he works well with Luka. We know he works well on the defensive side. He's our best rim protector. That's a really good final five. And of course, if Tim is shooting well, he'd probably be out there maybe ahead of Josh Green, depending on which guy is playing better in any given game.
Yep.
That is soundly a better closing five than we used to have with Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie for a Mavericks team that has been abysmal in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
And we just added the NBA player that has the most points scored in the fourth quarter. Now, I know he plays most of the fourth quarter, and if you look at per minute, I think Giannis and Steph are actually a little bit better than him in the fourth quarter. But still, the guy can put up points. And Luka's the number one scorer in the first quarter. So we've got the beginning of the game and the end of the game. And in modern NBA, that's what matters most.
Yep.
Getting out to early leads and then closing games out. And we have been terrible at closing games out this season. So I think in the immediate, that addresses that problem, at least offensively, quite well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would say that Kyrie is also just a better fit next to Luka, and comparatively than Spencer Dinwiddie. And I'm not trying to dog on Spence, but I had brought this up a few times of him just kind of sitting around in the first quarter when Luka's trying to cook. You're not going to have this with Kyrie Irving. When that dude touches the ball, he's going to go, and it's going to be fun to watch. We saw it. I mean, we've seen it his entire career, and we're going to be able to see it every single game now. If you're like me and you hyper focus on the Mavericks, right, you don't get to see a whole lot of the NBA out, the other teams. And, this guy, it's going to be so insane. It's going to be so much fun to watch, first of all. Like, you could say some things about the last few Mavericks teams. Outside of Luka, it's kind of boring basketball. These guys don't get out in transition. With Luka especially, they don't. And, they're the number one half-court offense because they're going into it every single time down the floor. Kyrie Irving is just a special basketball player that you only see really, once every few years, right? With this much skill. It's going to be so much fun to watch. And the offense is going to be, I think, just so crisp. just the amount of ball movement I think we're going to see. Like obviously both of these guys do a lot of dribbling, right? That's
Yeah.
maybe their one flaw, or depending on how you look at it. I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. And I know it's like asking guys to change up how they play basketball, which is, you never really want to do that. But when you have a guy like Luka who would actually prefer to pass the ball than score the ball, he said that. I mean, I think we saw it in Europe, right? And we've seen, and I think he said it multiple times. He wants to get guys involved. He wants to pass the basketball. He loves passing basketball. And for him to have not only Seawood and now Kyrie Irving, a guy like Josh Green who can cut so well, and then Maxi Kleber, like you said, on the pick and pop, and then Tim Hardaway when he's on fire. This is going to be a really fun offense to watch. And I think they can outscore anybody in the league. And I think that Jay Kidd will still want to focus on defense. Obviously, that's just his mindset as a coach. But we're going to outscore a lot of teams. There's not going to be very many that can outscore us.
We definitely are. I'm really interested to see what this does potentially for Luka's development as well, because Kyrie Irving, he does dribble a lot. He has relatively high usage rate this season. He's in the top 20, not in the top 10. That's a team, the Nets, that had Kevin Durant too, right? But he doesn't dribble the air out of the ball like Spencer can do sometimes. I think he attacks. He's obviously very tactical when, he's going one-on-one with the guy. He does go a little bit quicker when he has the matchup, like you were saying. But Luka's really going to be tested, how he's going to work off ball. I think this is now not an offense where he can take possessions off. When you have a guy who, when he's right, is a top 15 NBA player alongside you, you can't afford to take those possessions off anymore.
Nope.
That's the whole reason why they brought this support for you. So he's going to have to learn and break habits of playing off ball, moving off ball, forcing the defense to work with him and mold to him as a threat when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. I think Kyrie already knows how to do that, right?
Yep.
He's been doing it with Kevin Durant. He did it with LeBron James when he went and got a ring. This is a guy who can play with, he played literally with the best player in basketball at the time.
Yep. He's
So
played
I'm not
with
worried.
the top two players that we've seen
Right.
for fucking 15 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm not worried about how Kyrie is going to mold his game with the Dallas Mavericks. And I'm not worried about how Luke is going to mold his game. I'm more just interested to see what he does, how he surprises me. Typically, whenever we expect things of Luka, he exceeds those expectations. So I'm just excited. But, that we can get into situations where Kyrie's going pick and roll with Christian Wood, right? And now how Luka go to the short corner or the weak side block and be a guy that can actually apply some rim pressure on who knows? Like the world of possibilities is completely open for Luka now on the offensive side of the ball. And so I'm excited to see, what he can do. And again, like just to historically talk about it a little bit more, like he played with KP, one-time All-Star. Christian Wood, never been an All-Star. Spencer Dinwiddie, never been an All-Star. Kyrie Irving is an 8-time All-Star. He's a 3-time All-NBA player. He was Rookie of the Year. He's been good for a very long time. Granted, in the last 3 years, there have been a lot of hiccups off the court. There's been a lot of divisive conversations about who he is as a person, what his beliefs are. And I'm not saying that should all be thrown aside. And I think it's certainly something that is going to be brought up time and time again, every single day. If you go on Twitter, you will see something negative about Kyrie. You will see something on the opposite side, very positive about Kyrie. But I will say, from a guy that, was representing a lot of the players, what was his position? Was he vice president of the Players Association?
Gosh, I mean, I know Chris Paul was the president for so long.
I think Kyrie was vice president. The way that he is revered by current players in the NBA from just a strictly skill standpoint, they talk about him like he's Steph. I know he doesn't have the accolades. He doesn't have the rings. He doesn't affect a defense, I don't think, in the same way that Steph does. But this guy is truly talented. And like you said, that we haven't seen something on the Mavericks like this since Steve Nash played with Dirk. And we were talking about before we got on air, Steve Nash hadn't won back-to-back MVPs at that point yet. This was a young Steve Nash. Like, we now look back at that Dirk Steve Nash combo and say, oh, what would have been?
Yep.
But it wasn't necessarily that at the time, right? You're looking at a 30-year-old Kyrie and you're looking at a 23-year-old Luka. Luka's an over 30 point per game scorer right now. He is averaging 27 points per game, not the highest in his career, but close to it. So this is, to me, immediately a top 3 duo in the NBA. I really don't know who you can put ahead of them outside of LeBron and Anthony Davis when they're fully healthy. And then Paul George and Kawhi would be the next duo that comes to mind. And Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have really turned into something special. But you're in the mix. You're right there in the mix with all 4 of those guys, with all 3 of those groupings.
When you said Paul George and Kawhi, my brain immediately said we're better. And I think I'm going to stay with that. I think Luka, Kawhi Leonard is an incredible player. Like,
he's been playing really well lately too.
Playing great, and just watching him just kind of tear us up. I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago. It reminds you, especially him not having been on the court for like the last 2 years, it reminds you how special of a player he is, especially when it comes to off the ball, or I should say not being a ball dominant superstar. Because when he is ready to take over the game, or when he is needed to take over the game, he goes and does it. He goes and gets his dribble up mid-range, catch and shoot 3, just whatever you need, and then he's always going to have the defense, right? This guy is incredible. Luka does things that Kawhi can't. Kyrie does things that Paul George can't. I think that we are better than Kyrie and Paul George. That may be, the site or a hot take.
It's a lot easier to like compare Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard,
Yes.
And then like pick which duo you like the better, because it's 2 wings versus 2 wings, right?
Yes.
And this is, you've got a point guard who's in a power forward's body, basically.
Yep.
And then another point guard. So it's tough to compare them. But I do think, like, look, Kyrie Irving's an East All-Star starter. Luka Doncic is a West All-Star starter. There's no other pairing that has 2 All-Star starters on their team. And with that, I'll just quickly pivot into what do we do with the rest of the team now, right? Because we still have Tim Hardaway, large contract, probably a guy that, now looking back at it on his performance and what we paid him, bit of an overpay. He's eating into the books. Davis Bertans certainly eating into the books, right? That your least favorite player on the Mavs, JaVale McGee, like, using our mid-level exception on him, doesn't look too great now. That if that $5-6 million had gone to another wing, build more wing depth on this team, we might not be in such a predicament after trading away Dorian Finney-Smith. We do get Markieff Morris in this trade, who becomes likely a rotational player for us.
Yeah. I'm not even mad about that. I think he's a good rotational player, or he will be.
He's shooting 40% on threes. He's a guy that can guard the 3 and the 4 position. He's gritty. He can be an enforcer if we need someone to take over that role. The James Johnson role of, hey, who's going to protect Luka if things get dicey? We know that Luka likes chirping, as he said a couple weeks ago, and I love that about him. I love that he's an elite competitor, and always will be as long as he's playing. But I do think there are more moves to be made in the next 4 days, and I'm eager to see what Nico and Mark are going to come up with, because, again, we need wing depth, we need defensive depth, we need defensive help. Another big that can play alongside Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber would be great. And we've got guys that we can move. I'd love to not have any team touch Jaden Hardy, Josh Green, but any of the other guys I think, could be considered available, whether it's Bullock, Bertans, Tim Hardaway, even Christian Wood for the right price. But I also, look, I'll tell you this, if Kyrie Irving plays 90%, 80% of the games left in the regular season, and we make a decent run in the playoffs, say we go to the second round, it's going to be hard for me not to talk myself into, okay, we should re-sign Kyrie Irving for 4. We should re-sign Christian Wood for 4.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of time until
Yeah.
then, and there's a lot that we need to see on the court.
I'll say I would only give up Christian Wood, like you said, for the right price. I think it would have to be an upgrade at that position specifically. Other than that, well, I would like to keep Maxi Kleber. That is the other player I think really will step in, especially with Dorian gone. After that, it's like Josh Green and everybody else. I'm open to trade. Reggie, Jaden. I mean, I love Jaden Hardy. I think he's going to develop into an everyday NBA player. For the right price, I would absolutely deal him. I mean, maybe even if it means especially if it means I think not having to give up a first round pick. I think I immediately call Detroit right now as soon as that Kyrie Irving deal is done and see what it takes to get Bojan and Nerlens Noel. I think that is the
Yeah, I mean, if we have Bojan Bogdanovic, Luka, and Kyrie Irving, and we somehow keep Christian Wood, if we don't have the best offense in the NBA, we're doing something wrong.
Yep.
At that point.
Yep. That's the first call I make and see where it goes from there. That would be incredible. I think, well, back a little bit to the Kyrie stuff, just in relations with Luka Doncic. One, Luka doesn't have to play 40 minutes a night anymore. That is out the window at this point. We can actually give him a reasonable amount of minutes in the regular season, which is fantastic. And 2, like you said, off ball. There was one more that I'm going to have to come back to it because I can't, it's just escaped my mind just like that. But other guys I would look at just positionally, like you said, wing depth. If we can get an upgrade over Reggie Bullock, please and thank you. I last year I loved Reggie. It's half the Bang Bros are already out. It's time. I mean, I think if we can ship off the other one. And just with the amount of money that will be available in the off season, just in case things don't work out, it's really refreshing that we'll kind of have, I mean, not exactly a clean slate, but something close, if not to max money available in the offseason.
Yeah, we'll have enough flexibility if Kyrie and Wood walk to sign another max player.
Yeah. And that's what you've wanted, right? Since Luke, I mean, it's something that I've wanted at least for sure. I think that's what a lot of Mavs fans have wanted. There's been a lot of chirping, like we said earlier, about Nico and Mark, especially Mark. I think Nico has proven at this point he knows what he's doing. Anybody who was left questioning him, I think you have to look at this, dude. You've got me so excited about this trade. I was a little weary when we started this episode, and now I am gassed. I am so gassed for this thing.
I think whether or not Nico knows what he's doing, I think still yet to be proven, right? We'd like to see some success from a play standpoint.
Yeah.
If we make it back to the Western Conference Finals, yeah, I think that's a success, right? If we make it to the playoffs and get a top 6 seed and maybe we get to the second round, a little disappointed, but probably okay. I'm mitigating my expectations just a little bit since we're getting Kyrie Irving in the middle of the season. I'm not guaranteeing that we're going to make the NBA Finals. The Warriors still exist. They still can make a move, and I expect them to make a move in the next three days.
Yeah, they should.
But what Nico has done is he's acted.
Yeah.
He has done something, right? For a long time, Mavs fans suffered through inaction in the offseason, whether it was free agency or trades. I do think we've handcuffed ourselves a bit. He made a risky play, right?
Yeah.
If Kyrie Irving, if neither of those guys re-sign with us, okay, we talked about it. We have financial flexibility to make a move. So I'm not incredibly worried about that, at least from retaining Luka Doncic. That is always at top of mind for me. Are we doing everything we can to make Luka happy, to make Luka capable of competing for championships and keeping him a Dallas Maverick for life?
Yep.
And an MFFL player and fan.
Hell yeah.
And, which is something that Dirk has wanted for him. And he has vocalized that he's wanted for Luka since Luka got into the league and has become our superstar.
Yep.
But the the quick action from Nico, the decision making, the attempt to try and put something around Luka, I have to applaud and I have to, give him credit. And I don't know if he's listening to the chatter that surrounds this team. I certainly know that like they're paying a little bit of attention to it, because if you talk about like some of the mural stuff where there's the
Yeah.
mural of go get Luka help, and Cuban says you got to take it down. And Luka says, "Hey guys," like DMs the guy and says, "Hey, we got to take it down."
Yeah.
Apparently they ran this by Luka, and Luka was excited about playing with
Yeah.
Kyrie Irving. I hope they did their due diligence, and I know that Nico has a much better relationship with Kyrie Irving than a lot of other GMs out there, so that makes me more comfortable with this trade and him headed to Dallas. I know how Kyrie feels about things politically, and I think that Texas, in a way, is a lot better of a fit for him than being in New York.
Yep.
In regards to just certain views that he has. But still a lot to be seen here. Kyrie moves have backfired for teams before. They backfired for the Celtics. It backfired for the Nets. So you'd be a fool not to be wary a little bit about this trade. But at this point, it's all about how does it work on the court. And I would project that it works out quite well.
The other thing I was going to say was and I saw this in a tweet earlier. I can't remember who. We're going to finally see Luka, like how he plays, like his style of play, his level of play with a second superstar is going to be on display for the entire league. Like we've heard, or I've heard at least, like people online saying, can Luka fit with that second star? Like what would that look? He's, dribbles all ball hog, whatever. We're going to see it. And everybody around the league is going to see it. And what happens if this is like otherworldly? Like it could be like legitimately Luka as the best player in the league with Kyrie Irving could elevate basketball. I know that may seem hyperbolic, but
I don't think that's out of the question. I mean, like a lot of people, there's a guy that I chat often about Luka and the formation of the Mavericks roster. A guy who has a show on the Bleav network called For the Love of the Game. His name's Aaron Tobin Hess. He's a great guy, fiery personality. I always love ATH's opinions, but he's just said, this heliocentric style cannot work. And it reminds him of the LeBron Cavs era, right before he heads to Miami. LeBron didn't win a championship, right? He got to the finals and he lost. He got piped by that Spurs team. And he's not necessarily wrong, right? Like Spencer Dinwiddie, okay, we'll say he was the second best player on this team. In the NBA top 100, Spencer Dinwiddie and Christian Wood are both between 70 and 100 for most people. They're not top 70 players. You want to talk about how he's a ball hog? Like, how would you play if you didn't have a top 70 player that you were playing? He does the best that he can with what he's got. The shot quality that he creates for all of his teammates, incredible. Guys like Reggie Bullock and Dorian Finney-Smith were taking wide open threes, game in, game out. Tim Hardaway, like these guys had incredible shot quality because of what Luka is able to do and put pressure on defenses. So, yeah, you could say heliocentric style doesn't win, but to me, this is a better version. You could say that the Rockets with James Harden and Chris Paul, the Rockets with James Harden and Russell Westbrook couldn't win because of the style of basketball that they played. Yep. Well, now we're going to see a better version of that with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, because Luka Doncic is better than James Harden, and Kyrie Irving is better than Chris Paul at being that second guy.
Yes.
Right? If I wanted to give the keys to a guy to run my team, yeah, I'd give it to Chris Paul because I think he creates for everyone. He elevates everyone.
Yeah, point guard.
But I would much rather have Kyrie Irving attacking on a 4-on-3 as opposed to Russell Westbrook.
Oh, of course.
As opposed to Chris Paul in that situation. He's more dynamic than Chris Paul, and he's a better spot-up shooter than Russell Westbrook.
Yep.
Look, I'm just excited to see what this team can do now. And now we know there is no excuse for the end of game when we're down 2 or when we're down 1 or it's tied. There's 8 seconds left. That the play has to be inbound it to Luka and have him shoot a step back 3 from the left wing from 33 feet. We have other options.
Yep. I'm excited. I'm so excited. And I think, listen, if you don't like the trade, I get it. Like, trust me, I get it. This comes with so many question marks. We're talking, like, I like to stay positive. This is super exciting. This is the most exciting move to me since we drafted Luka. And I got pumped for that because shout out to Jeff Skin Wade, the third guy on the Mavs broadcast, also host of the Ben and Skin show. He was in tune with how good Luka was before he got to the NBA, which I was not. And to hear him talk about, and a guy who knows basketball, to talk about a guy like that, I legitimately got excited. And when we traded for Luka on draft night, I was ecstatic. I was like, things are going to change around here. And they have, obviously. This is the most excited I've been since then. And it's not just Luka and Kyrie and Seawood, Josh Green running out in transition, Kyrie running right there alongside him. Like, this is exciting basketball. And the thought of just adding more to it, if they can put it all together here in the last 40 games or how, like, I think it's less than that now, right?
Yeah.
Like, if they can somehow manage to put it together, if Jason Kidd can silence the haters and say, hey, I actually am a pretty good coach. I got us to the Western Conference Finals last year with Luka, JB, and the others. If he can say, hey, let's come in and let's do this, and they do it, they make it back to the Western Conference Finals. They make it to the NBA Finals. Knock on wood, right? Like, if everything goes right and that happens, like, we're in for the most exciting season as Mavs fans since 2011. And even if you hate the trade, dude, just focus on that for a bit, because this is what it's supposed to feel like. This is how it's supposed to be.
This is the last thing that I'll say on it. And he's Kyrie is going to have a physical evaluation tomorrow.
Yep.
And then, the hope is that the first game that he plays donning the Mavericks blue will be against the Clippers in LA on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
It is a crude reality that in the modern NBA, you cannot win with one top 15 player. It cannot be done.
Yep.
And it certainly cannot be done if you don't have 2 to 4 other players that are in the top 50,
Yep.
right? You want to talk about Giannis? Well, he also had Drew Holiday. Guess what? That guy is an all-star as well.
Yeah. Stud.
Chris Middleton has also been an all-star multiple times in his career.
Underrated.
Brooke Lopez has also been an all-star multiple times in his career.
Yep.
All playing on the same team. That team won.
Yep.
Steph Curry, he's a top 10 player in my mind all time. Klay Thompson, multiple-time all-star. Draymond Green, multiple-time all-star. Last year, Andrew Wiggins, an all-star.
Yep.
Like, you have to have the personnel in place to truly win a championship. This Celtics team, same thing. Al Horford, multiple-time all-star. Jaylen Brown, all-star. Jason Tatum, all-NBA player. The Mavericks had limited options as to the guys that they could bring in currently alongside Luka.
Yep.
There is a ticking clock always. And they brought in a guy who, when he's playing and he needs to be out on the court more, he's a top 15 player in basketball. And that's what you have to do to compete for a championship. And again, like I said, it's a crude reality, but like, there are too many talented players across the board in the NBA for you to win without 2 like top 25 guys.
You're
and
right.
So, now we're in a position where we have 2 of those guys that got to go do it on the court, and excited to see this first game. Really, knock on wood for the health of Luka and Christian Wood coming back. We need those guys to be healthy. Need Maxi Kleber to be healthy. And just last thing I'll say, rooting for Dorian Finney-Smith.
Absolutely.
Rooting for Spencer Dinwiddie. Love both those guys. I think the Nets now are an interesting conversation. I actually think from a trade standpoint, to me, this kind of takes them out of contention.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
I mean, the Suns are already, like, there's reports already out there that the Suns are monitoring the KD situation to see if he wants out. And I'm sure the other 28 teams, because I can't imagine the Mavericks can pull off that trade at this point, unless they want to ship Kyrie back to the Nets, which I don't think they will. The 28 other teams, barring a few tankers, will probably check in on KD. And this could end up being, because of this first move, could be an absolutely wild deadline here in 4 days, 5 days, 4 days.
Thursday,
Yeah.
yeah.
Incredible. That's going to do it for us on the Bleav in Mavs podcast. If you're not excited, I get it. Well, a little bit, but I really don't. Like, this is incredible. Be sure and like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, peace.
Peace.